talking about, so ORGANIQUE stands for, has been brought up and created with nutrition. And then we added the emotional program, and we added some mental wellness in also. And so now it feels like the right time that we have this conversation about stepping into our spiritual bodies and our spiritual missions here, and on what that looks like on our journey. And so we're kind of stepping into it also, and so we thought we would share some of our ideas or experiences and see if we can help anyone else out there with theirs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think the truth is that ORGANIQUE, and I'm using ORGANIQUE as an example, but anything that is currently birthed or currently, thriving or doing well or successful, the truth is the spirituality of that thing truly is the entire foundation. So, and it always has been for ORGANIQUE, but I don't know that we've always made it readily obvious or readily apparent, at least from the perspective of education. So I want to just, honor the fact that all of what ORGANIQUE is, whatever it is, it's something that truly has been first birthed in the spiritual realm, and then is more like a download, or we are the receivers of it, but it was kind of always intended to be, right? And that's how healing works. So the foundation was laid a long time ago, but now I do believe we are stepping into the more responsible role, which is imparting to others the true power of healing, and honoring the fact that true healing comes from a spiritual place, whether it's of the body or of the physical body or the emotional body. Mm-hmm. It truly is only ever a spiritual type of healing. Mm-hmm. So in order for a person to really step into what they are meant to be and meant to experience, I believe they have to acknowledge the true power behind that, and that's when things truly will start to bloom.
Awesome. Would you give me the analogy that I asked for the other day? So Ashley's really great at analogies, and I'm always looking for advice on how to communicate to the best of my ability. And so I asked for an analogy on somebody's spiritual path, and what could we use for that?
Well, so I think the analogy I came up with the other day was like a GPS on your car. If you just start driving around haphazardly and kind of taking any turn that comes upon the road without any ultimate, end game or ultimate destination point, God only knows where you're going to end up. So typically we don't do that unless we're out for a Sunday drive, I guess. But usually you get in the car, you start driving, and you have a destination point. Now let's say if you're in northern Wisconsin, let's say that you set the end point of Arizona. So you might plug that into your GPS, that this is my ultimate journey, but along the way, you are going to come up with all sorts of crazy stuff that, potentially will be really awesome and beautiful, or really long and trying, or really scary, like a crazy storm. It's inevitable that these things are going to come up throughout the course of the journey. And one journey is totally different than another person's journey, meaning my trip to Arizona could be, for the most part, hot, sunny skies, hot weather, and I get to pretty much get all the way there. And the next person could head to Arizona, they drive through a tornado, and they crash and die. So the point is that I'm on my own journey, somebody else is on their own journey. And I believe that sometimes, sadly, in our culture, we have an unrealistic expectation, which is that we should be able to go through what I'll say is symptom-free. We're entitled to go through and not hit a storm. We're entitled to go through and not blow a tire. But the reality is, if you're going to put on that many miles, you probably are going to run into a snag here and there. So instead of being surprised by that and becoming a victim of that, the reality would say, odds are something's going to happen. So you don't have to take that as a surprise. And then the key, I believe, is it's all about how you not react. It's about how you respond to what inevitably is thrown at you, instead of reacting like a victim and surprised that how could this possibly happen. It's like, of course something is going to happen. That's kind of the whole point, because if we don't get the opportunity to strengthen our spiritual muscles, we will not be able to ascend to higher places of spirituality, which I believe is the only reason we're all here.
Mm-hmm.
So
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an example. So I see this, kind of all day, every day now, which I didn't know that was part of my
mission journey
plan here. But
yes.
It's great, and so I'm learning with everyone else as they go. And so I wanted to give a couple examples, and then we can kind of talk through what that looks like. So I had someone come in, and they really wanted to listen to God's advice, and so they wanted to know what was holding them back from really being able to receive divine guidance. And so we did our session together, and some of the things that came up were like, what is my spiritual path, which a lot of people want to know, but we're not here to tell them what their spiritual path is, but more importantly, what's holding them back, what's blocking them from receiving that information on their own. And so that's what we were working together on, and one of the things was career choice. And so we're muscle testing together some options and ideas, and all of which the patient had. And so I'm just the conduit between the subconscious and the conscious, testing. And then we asked, is there anything, okay, so this is the one that seems to be your top priority, one we're intended to work with. And so we did some emotional things, what's holding back, and then any limiting beliefs holding back. And so, okay, so the end of the session was, is there something holding you back from this position or career or choice? And it was a no. So it was like, cool, awesome, we're done for today. And then that patient called me and said, hey, it was super exciting because I actually got an interview for that position or that career choice. And so I was super excited, but I actually didn't get the job. And so you said I was going to, because that's what we muscle tested together. And so now I want to know, do you call them back and tell them that or not? And so I think my response was, well, maybe it was a seed planted for a later time, and then I kind of went away. But I have a feeling there are probably quite a few lessons in that example that I wanted to go through with you.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I have so many thoughts here, so forgive me. I feel like first I want to address one thing and then come back to that actual scenario. We are all automatically completely connected to God. We can't help but be. If we have a heartbeat, we're not doing that on our power. If our digestive system is working, if our hormones are pumping, we're not doing any of this on our own power. So one thought would be, for the analogy's sake, if we have the GPS going, my question would be, are we listening? Because maybe it's on mute, meaning it's going, it's showing us the directions, but are we listening? And are we keeping ourselves in an opportunistic situation where we can hear the consistent guidance? That means daily. That means many times a day. I mean, you wouldn't put your GPS on and be like, okay, I'll check back in 12 hours. It's like, guess what? You missed a lot of turns.
Right.
You have to stay consistently connected, or not connected. You have to be listening consistently. You're always connected. And then I want us to think about nature. We are all part of nature. And if you think about a seed, you plant a seed. The seed does not have to try really hard. Mm-hmm. The seed doesn't have to go, oh my gosh, how on earth do I get connected to God? How on earth do I figure out how to bloom? It can't help it. That's what it's intended to do. It just blooms, okay? That is exactly how we are as humans, only way more powerful. So what's blocking us? Our mind. If you ask me, our mind. What we think about this or that. Which, by the way, we're not right necessarily. We could be, we might not be. But our belief system, our mind keeps us thinking, oh, I have to strive if I want to come into my mission. I have to work really hard, just toil and sweat. And it's like, oh my gosh, no. Again, look at nature because we are part of it. It is not difficult. The seasons are not difficult. It just happens. And when they say like nature is never in a hurry, but it all gets done. That's called flow. That's called synchronicity, flow, all of these things. But the point is, we don't even need it. It just is. It's a universal law of nature, just like gravity. Mm-hmm. So, but trying to defy gravity, trying to force something that is opposite of what is, now that's a lot of work. So the key is finding where you can bloom and not resisting so much. Most, in my opinion and clinical experience, most disease is the result of resistance of what is, usually because of a belief system, a handed down belief system, some ancestral stuff, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, it's resistance, and it's lack of allowing the truth of what is and fighting against it tooth and nail. So then to come back to that specific example, first of all, and I'm sure you said this, I'd say, you didn't say that. You said that there is nothing blocking you from going through with this process, with this job. And so in that situation, the way that I would hear that, and then the way I would respond is some part of that process needed to happen for this individual's spiritual growth. And that's from a spiritual perspective. From a real life perspective, you're exactly right. It might be this sort of thing where, you might hear, oh, the stars weren't aligned. And it's like, that's one way of saying it. But potentially there is going to be a seed that gets planted that comes to fruition 3 or 4 or 5 years later, when that person is at a point of surrender in some other area of life that needed to happen. And now they're there and they're ready to receive. And that's the beautiful thing of faith, and how we can just trust that everything that is intended is coming to us. And when a door is closed, it's so easy to release it and move on. Because the truth is, if that wasn't intended for me, I don't want it anyway. I thought I did. My ego wanted it. My ego totally wanted the identity or the money or the position or whatever, the title or whatever that looks like. But I always see situations like that as being, okay, thank you, God, because obviously, even though it looks really shiny and sparkly on paper, there's some part of that is not right for me. And I would always be in disharmony in that situation. And truly, if it's not what's right for me, I don't want it anyway. And you could apply that to everything in life. You know, so that's where the surrender happens. Even if you really deeply desire or want something, it gives you the opportunity to go, okay, I'm going to trust that that's not intended for me, or not now, and that maybe the reality is maybe I have some really deep work that I need to do surrounding this situation. And typically, if the spiritual work gets done, something else comes out that is so much better than you could have ever dreamed of.
Yes.
And the key is doing your own homework and cleaning your own home and doing your own spiritual work. And again, that not in a hard, I have to work so hard and toil kind of a way, just in a blooming and an allowing way. So that I can't stress the word enough, surrender. It's like you surrender to the highest good for your life and your situation, and you trust that all of the components will be there at the intended time, just like a seed. Maybe it's not going to bloom in the middle of winter. So a seed could sit there and be super angry about it and super resistant and super mad it's not happening. It's like, just chill out and save yourself the disease. And guess what's going to happen come spring? It's going to happen because everything, all the recipe ingredients are put together at the intended time. So that's how that works, in my opinion.
Awesome. We have been talking about kind of the steps, I'll call them. And so we have named them acknowledge that we are spiritual beings here with a spiritual mission, asking, so trusting that we can receive what we ask, and then we can receive our divine guidance, and then allowing. And so allowing whatever to happen. So can you elaborate on any of that and like how we can put that into use?
Yes. So acknowledging means realizing all of the things, like we kid ourselves when we think that we have power, or not power, I'm sorry, control. We just truly don't have control. Meaning that flower gets in the eye of a tornado and it's toast. Okay? So, and I don't mean that in a fear factor way. I just mean it in, again, a reality way. So we think we have so much control, and or we try to control so hard. So acknowledging means realizing I didn't get here on my own strength, but I'm here. Must be a reason for it. And I believe our days are numbered, meaning my heart's going to keep beating as long as it's intended to. And being okay with that and being comfortable with the fact that I have a mission and I don't have to strive to find it. It will happen because that's the whole point of why I am here. So acknowledging means opening up to the fact that there's so much more to this whole thing than get up, go to work, eat, sleep. It's like, no. That's kind of like the mobile vehicle for all of this. But the truth is, it's housing your spiritual life. And so that is acknowledging. Asking would be, there's a difference between a really powerful driving force always looking for more. I need more. There's more in this life. I have to do more. Like when it's kind of like an aggressive, frustrated energy, that's not it. That's your ego, and that's your root chakra being like, I need to get. I deserve a better job. I am frustrated here. But, so that's a little different energy than being aware of a shift inside where you feel that you have something that is so compelling and so interesting to you that you feel really lit up over that. And it's the type of thing where when you're doing it, time is stand still. If you're a person who tends toward depression, you're not depressed when you're doing that thing. That is your blueprint. There's a reason you are really passionate about that and the next person isn't. Like, that's not by chance. So opening to that And then realizing, just like that seed, you don't have to try. You just have to be in the energy of doing it, enjoying it. You don't have to have all these ideas of, then what can I get from it, and what am I going to do with it, and like what job this is. It's like no. That's root chakra. That's lower minded thinking. That's aggression and frustration and get more me. That's not it. But when you can get to an energy of, I really enjoy this, I'm really passionate about this, I feel very healthy and alive when I'm doing this, then it shifts gears eventually, once you have that thing and you're doing that thing, to how can I help somebody with this? When you truly desire to help somebody else or serve somebody else with what it is that you're very excited and passionate about, now you know that you're at the point of the seed is starting to crack. There's a little sprout. It's beginning to bloom. And then, so that's the asking part, is when you start to feel like, oh, I would really love to share this or love to do this. I don't see any avenues, blah, blah, blah. Again, you're not in charge of any of that, just like the flower isn't in charge of the sun showing up. But you simply acknowledge, like, or you're acknowledging, and then you're asking, like, what is this? What am I supposed to do more of this to serve humanity? And by humanity, it could just be your local town, or your neighbor, whatever. And then from there, allowing means, if my expectations are that I'm going to do this for a Fortune 500 company in the middle of New York City and make $500,000, again, not it. That is not true spiritual connection if it's all me focused. So allowing means coming into what is intended to be. You will get a response. You will get a response back. It might be a job interview. Mm-hmm. It might be a changing locations. It might be a pregnancy. Anything of that nature. But the point is, you allow it to be what it is and what it's intended to be. So if that seed sprouts into a rose, great. But if that rose is like, I needed to be a geranium, it's like, you can try all you want, but turns out you're a rose. You're not a geranium. And that is what I mean by that is comparison, competition. There's no room for that in the spiritual walk. A beautiful garden is probably one that has many different types of flowers and many different types of foliage. And certain flowers are going to look that much more beautiful against a backdrop of plain ferns, right? But because of the contrast and the colors, and it all is this beautiful amalgamation of just a beautiful representation of creation. That's how it is. Some people are ferns, some people are roses, some people are geraniums. But to try to resist what you are or try to change what you are is so futile. It's so stupid. But it's like you can, the saying, you can get busy living or you can get busy dying. So think about all of these little flowers like having competition with each other and wanting to one up the other one. It's like, are you kidding me? But the point is the collective is beautiful. People are beautiful all together. Mm-hmm. And there's different roles. There are supporting roles, like to practitioners. You have practitioners and you have the supporting roles. And the truth is, you can't be a practitioner at a high volume without all the supporting roles. You can't do your work. So everybody is truly equally important. Mm-hmm. And it's about lifting each other up. So if I were to think, oh, my support staff isn't as important as patients, for instance, how successful will my program be? Not even remotely. They need to be loved and cared for and thought about as much as the patients need to be. Otherwise, the patients don't receive what they need to receive. And the same goes for me. And I had to recently learn this lesson. If I don't love myself, meaning put myself first, putting my own health first, my schedule, my time, my energy, my nutrition, my family, because that is just an extension of me, and I put everybody else first, if it takes me out eventually, I will be the one with the disease, and everybody else will be healthy. But what the heck? That's no way to treat the temple, right? So we have to love ourselves and others and all others equally. That's where the spiritual magic starts to happen.
Being in that flow is such a beautiful place. People ask all the time. They're like, "How do I know? How do I know what will happen?" Or I'm striving, I'm looking, and I'm trying to help people understand that you'll know because you're just happy.
Yep.
There's joy, there's happiness, there's laughter, there's no stress, and it doesn't mean I'm doing or not doing. It's being content with what is. And
it's exciting when you see the blooming happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like,
trust
okay.
that because you're like, oh, okay, it is happening.
Yeah. And then you pick the things that make you feel self-love, whether that's taking care of yourself or going for a horseback ride or taking a walk in nature and doing all that. And then when you're in that, you're like, holy man, now I'm really connected because I've got just non-stop connection, nothing blocking me because I'm in that flow. And it's such a beautiful place to be. It's not this big striving, like
allowing.
Yeah.
Right?
If I ask what would nurture me, 9 times out of 10, it's going for a walk in the woods and then just being super connected and very aware of what's going on and really enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's not, that was a walk in the woods. It didn't cost me anything. I didn't need anybody with me. It doesn't take a bunch of time. It's just beautiful connection. It's not this big, ginormous spiritual mission that I'm here on. I mean, it is.
It is,
but it's simple.
Not hard. And to go back to the GPS analogy, all you have to do is click unmute. If you're going through downtown Chicago and it takes a super crazy, scary situation and it's like, oh, okay, now I know where I'm going. And you just listen and you just follow. And you're no longer scared to death, right? You know, there's not the fear, there's not the anxiety, there's not the panic because you just are listening. But to go back to what you were just saying, I have a question for you because you made the comment like, you're happy. It's good. So how do we navigate when we have a client, like you were sharing this story with me, where, and I'll let you actually tell the story, but the one where she has just an unbelievable amount of tragedy in her life, more than, in my opinion, 5 or 6 different people should have to go through. And if that person were to actually, that specific person would agree with us, but if she were to hear a statement like, I don't know, you're just in the flow and you're happy, how do you navigate that when you are living through trauma the way that she has had to live through?
So this specific example has had quite a few major tragedies in her life. It's one of the times when I listened to her story with my mouth open and tears flowing down my face because she's just a beautiful person. Coming off of somebody, how do I say that politely? Coming off of somebody really being hard on my truths and my boundaries. And so coming off of that conversation, stepped right into this next appointment, and this beautiful woman says, like, she wants to know more about me. And this wasn't for her, but it was just so beautiful after all the tragedies that she talked about that have happened in her life. And of course, she has physical issues because of it, and now pretty much everything is stopped physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And so of course the biggest hurdle or the biggest awakening is going to be figuring out her spiritual. And so it is very interesting to navigate the conversation about, well, if this is your mission here and you're still here, why? Not why me, not why did all these bad things happen to me, but why what do I have to heal from, and then what do I have to help other people with? And so she's super fabulous about the conversation, but I asked her the actual question that I stated to her and asked her to sit with each of her tragedies is, how could you honor that? How could you honor that person? How could you honor that relationship? What if you're the only one left? Then what are you intended? It's something, right? It's just like the bridge collapses and one person lives. That person has something.
Yeah,
to do.
and on
I
the
get
bridge
we all do, but
was children, and
yeah,
every possible person closest to you is now gone.
yeah. So it was a really beautiful conversation, and we'll see what she comes back with. But
well, first of all, to honor the fact that what on earth, like some people's hand that they get dealt, what can you say?
right.
And first of all, I'm acknowledging I have no idea how a person goes through these things. I have no idea. But I do have faith in the process of the difference between reacting, and responding. So, the hand each of us gets dealt, and like in her situation, I mean, truly, I've only heard one or two other stories of that caliber in my life. And I have always thought, like, what on earth? Why? I mean, to go through one of these things would be 1 in a million. But to go through 5 or 6 of these things, it's like, this shouldn't have to be, you shouldn't have to go through this in life. But that's an opinion. That is a perspective from a human being not understanding behind the scenes and not understanding the way that a person such as she, responding in love, responding in acceptance, responding in forgiveness. Can you even imagine how many people can be healed by her story? And I hate to say it, maybe that's it. Maybe that is just it. That she's actually a truly powerful healer here. And by her story, others will be healed. When I think through some of the most poignant people that are very compelling and transformational for others, it is people who have been through a whole load of trouble and trauma and setbacks and physical diseases. Somebody like Joe Dispenza, Dr. Dispenza is a really beautiful example. And then you think about I have no idea how many hundreds of thousands of people he's shifted as a result of what he went through. That's just one name. But it's like, okay, the key is he showed up. He responded from a really deep spiritual place. And he got connected. And he transformed himself, or he allowed the transformation, and then he serves to others. And to me, that's it. That's the blueprint. That's the prototype. So if we get caught in victim mentality or why me, there's some saying out there like, instead of saying why me, the really healthy response is, what is this teaching me? So if we can start to condition our subconscious brains to, what is this teaching me? What is this teaching me? How can I show up? How can I help myself? How can I help others? I think that's the only way to navigate out that GPS, even out of some of the worst, most treacherous and dark places. If there was ever a hope to navigate through, I think it's with 100% connection to the divine. And asking and responding, asking and responding. That's the way that I see that, but not to diminish, not to pretend. I have no clue how you actually go through it, but my point is that seems to me to be the only spiritual response. And one day at a time.
Yep. Yes.
So
beautiful. I wanted to talk to you about the Japanese bowl thing.
Oh gosh, don't make me say the word. I can't say it.
But it's such a beautiful description about us being broken. A lot of people think they're broken, and that's the one thing that people come in here and say is like they never have the confidence that they're actually healing or that they're moving through it. They're like, well, I'm a bad mom or I'm a bad friend or whatever. Well, for one, stop saying those things to yourself. Stop thinking those things.
Right.
And or if you are, show up for yourself and fix that.
And so you're broken.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's okay. But there's a step to get past the broken part and really be whole and healed.
Yeah, okay, so that isn't, it's in Japanese culture. I think it's kitsugi or something with a K. And it's something along the lines of anything that's broken. So they use the analogy of pottery, but I think then they apply it to life. Anything that's broken, they take some mixture of gold, silver, or platinum dust, and then they kind of have that beautiful metallic looking glue. That's what they put in that broken spot, and of course piece it back together. And that the finished new bowl or pottery piece is so much more beautiful with the streaks of gold through. And that, I don't know if there's any tie-in to alchemy, but from the perspective of like that kind of transformation or transmutation of alchemy, where you're kind of taking certain metals that are not precious, but through the process of alchemy, they turn into something else. Something more precious. And that really is a analogy or a metaphor for our spiritual lives and our spiritual walk. So it's like, if you consider this kitsugi concept, I am so sorry if I'm butchering that term. I don't actually know how to say it. You would never have the opportunity to see the beautiful gold strands or threads throughout the pottery piece if it did not first break. And I actually have to give credit to my husband for that, because he introduced me to this years ago when one of the plates that I love so much broke. And he was like, no, this is why this doesn't matter. And I'm like, oh, thanks, honey. But he glued it with glue. And I'm like, okay, where's the gold strings?
Right.
But the point is that was the first time that I heard about it, but I thought it was so beautiful. When we take the metaphor of our spiritual life, had I not broken in this place, I would not have the opportunity to heal in this place and be really wowed by the fact that I just healed from that. And now I healed so I can show somebody else that they too can heal.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it inspirational and beautiful when people come in to your office and something like this is happening, and so they're broken, and we can picture their heart, we can picture their whatever disease they're coming in for, or emotional issues, or whatever that is, and you can see that break, and that, okay, let's allow it to come to the surface, and let's let the healing begin. The body knows what it's doing, it has its innate ability to heal, and then you see the transformation, and then that all come together, and then you see that person and they have a different light in their eyes, and they have a smile on their face, and they are lit up in light, and it is beautiful. I'm so blessed to be able to do this all day, every day, because I just see it. I see people come in, and I see people go out, and I'm like,
that's it.
Wow, this is it. This is it.
So we're like the gardeners. We get the opportunity to watch the transformation and then see the blooming happen, and then be able to just kind of, be in the garden and be like, whoa, this is amazingly beautiful. And it has nothing to do with us.
No.
It's just, again, we're just the gardener. We're kind of taking care of certain things, but the creation is happening because of that connection with, God and the universe and the sun and the soil and the watering and everything. But again, it just happens. It just becomes. And yes, it's what has me so excited and alive to show up at work and be just really, truly like celebrating. And then also, though, it's what makes it so hard when they're not at the blooming phase yet. You want to be like, you're fine. Just wait, just get through it. Get through the dirt. Get through the lotus flower. Get through the dirt. You've got to get through, and then the bloom happens. Kind of without fail, as long as the person shows up for it,
Yeah.
right? You know, and allows the blooming to happen. So yes, it's unbelievably powerful to, and it's such an honor to be in a position where you do get a chance to see the garden happening. The pre and the post, though, I feel like is really awesome.
It is.
So
it is.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm always so proud of everybody that puts in the work. I know some of their family doesn't necessarily still see the old, or they don't like the changes. But I always tell people that I'm super proud because it does take a lot of work. But it's such a beautiful place to be, and it's such beautiful work because then we can just share.
It takes a lot of work to tame the mind, you know, like it takes a lot of work to have patience. That's the work. It's like having patience and allowing and letting go of your own expectations on what you thought your timeline would be or should be. It's all the shoulds.
Right.
That's what I mean by taming the mind. That is the very hard work. That's totally true.
Yes.
So yes. And I don't think that's one thing that's different with a flower. I don't think it has a mind or a culture that's constantly working against the bloom. So yes. There was something else that I thought we were wanting to navigate.
Expectation.
Dualism. Yeah, okay. Yes. Thank you. And I guess I covered it a little bit with the competition factor, but I think that we can be so judgmental of other people, which again, judgment of other people will never put us in the place of our own ability to create ourselves, meaning or to bloom. Judgment of others, it's never going to happen. But judgment of ourselves also. People judge themselves harder than anybody in my experience. And I think that word should comes up so frequently when everybody, including me, judges myself. You know, it's like, oh, I should actually be doing this or I should actually be doing that. So I think that dualism, me versus you, my success versus yours, meaning collectively all of us, that dualism is what it keeps us in a place of judgment and automatically keeps us in a place of being blocked from receiving. So that would be like putting that plant underneath the deck where it can't get any sunlight and it never gets watered. It will wilt and die. So that is important to me to call out that one of the most important things that we can do if we are wanting spiritual growth and wanting real life change and transformation to happen in our own lives, we have to want that for others. And in my experience with my own life, there were a few things that I was feeling very blocked with, and not intentionally, accidentally, I got to a place in my own spiritual walk where I came to a rubber meets the road kind of a thing with some forgiveness. And forgiveness of others, but also of myself, which is huge, that I feel like we don't talk about enough. Like, if you don't forgive yourself, you're also completely blocked. Your own cells need love, and they deserve love. And so actually a little bit accidentally, I came to a place where I was like, oh, okay, I need to love myself, but in order to love myself, I have to love others, because there's no difference between loving yourself and loving others, okay? If you love somebody else, it's love back. If you love yourself, you're automatically affecting love onto other people. That's just how the universe works. It's a universal law, whether you like it or not. Just like gravity, it's like that's how it works. So I got to a place where I had to truly sit with, forgiveness, but like not just forgiveness. I found that I couldn't actually just, like, I didn't even know, like, I feel like I forgave that person. I'm fine, you know? But it was like, okay, well, to what extent do you sit and really hold love for them and truly wish for them to do well and be well and experience beautiful transformation and creation in their own life and be very successful and just on top of the world. Do you wish that for them? Because guess what? That's love. That's what love really means. And in the very beginning, I don't think I felt that at all. And it was like, oh, good to know. Okay, I need to allow that purification to happen in my own heart, my own spirit. Because that's how I heal from the trauma. That's how I feel from the infliction of pain, or however you want to say it. But truly, it was an infliction of pain. It was a really beautiful opportunity for me to do the hard spiritual work to be able to ascend. So it wasn't them versus me. It was, they were used as a really beautiful, kind of like in a play. It's like whatever the other actors are, like an actor in the play, for you to have the opportunity to spiritually show up and do the hard work on yourself, because I needed it, right? And how else would I have learned it if I didn't go through it? So anyway, I got to the point of actually being really good in that space and actually wanting really good things. And it was more than one person actually. So it was, I had to do that on a couple different levels. Had no clue. I was just doing it so I could heal, right, and move on. Unbelievable. I don't want to say results, it's not the right word, but even in the real life, all day, every day stuff, gigantic blessings that came as a result. And I don't want to go too deep into that story, but the point is, it's like, oh my gosh. So then you get to the point of gratitude that you went through it. Gratitude for all of the difficult times and all of the trials, because that is how the light was able to shine through. Exactly. The break is where the light shines through, right? And I wouldn't change anything. And I can say that now. And it's like, oh my gosh, thank God I went through that. Wow. Right. And then you are grateful and you don't harbor bitterness anymore. And so to me, that's just my own little story. Not anywhere as severe as the other person's story, but that's a real life example in my life where I have seen the power of healing. And again, it's spiritual healing. And then the body lets go in the place of pain that it's holding on to it. Or, you and I both work with that all day, every day. Wherever there's a physical issue going on, I guarantee it's never just physical. It's always in that specific spot for usually an emotional or a spiritual reason. So
I find it that we've never been taught, well, I don't think we've ever been taught, to go into the wound. So like, you're like, oh, it's fine. I'm fine with them. We all say that about a lot of things. Like, oh, that doesn't bother me. And, but really allowing and sitting with that wound and going into that wound. I think we've been taught that we should callous over that wound, we should put walls up around that wound, and we should protect it. And it's actually what's underlying, like you said, almost every single physical ailment of everyone's. And so really diving deep into that and being vulnerable enough to say, okay, what does that actually look like? Acknowledging all of those feelings is really important. We don't shut our emotions off. Spiritual awakening, spiritual enlightenment isn't never having negative emotions.
No.
At all, but opening that wound and allowing that wound to ooze out and then come to the surface, do what it needs to heal, allowing it to heal, and then you come, and then all these other things are like, whoa, look at what comes with it.
That's exactly it. And look at the physical body. If you have a wound and you do not clean it out, you leave the dirt, you leave the bacteria in there, and it starts to heal over, it will never go away, right? It will continue to fester, it will be inflamed, it's a low-grade underlying infection, there's always pain there. If you do the hard work to open it up and clean it out, now you allow that to close back up and heal, and not only will it heal, but it will heal with scar tissue, and everybody knows scar tissue is stronger than your regular tissue. So our physical body is always a mirror of our spiritual. So if we just understand, yes, it can hurt, but what is your alternative? Having this deep wound that causes pain the rest of your life, or cleaning it out, purifying it? And like you said, if you pretend that dirt in the wound isn't a real thing, it doesn't make it any cleaner. It's
Right.
like, you can kid yourself, but the truth is there's a lot of nasty stuff in here. And that's okay. That's the allowing, where you say, I feel really bitter and angry or hatred or super rejected, and I feel all that pain in the wound. That's life. But then again, what is the response? What can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? And then go forward, because you can stay on that island the rest of your life and feel sorry for yourself, or you can get busy living, you know? So
I feel like a beautiful example is The Choice by Dr. Edith Eger. I don't know how to say her last name correctly, sorry. It's an amazing book, and she wrote it when she was 90, and she now has a second book out, and I think she was 94 then, and these all just came out like in the last 4 or 5 years. And she was in Auschwitz. Is that how you say that correctly?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And she lived through it, and so her tragedy, her wounds were super deep and really big. But reading that book, we actually did a book club with that book, and reading that book, it allowed all of us, she actually says in there, your trauma is no less than my trauma. And so that's one thing that I want to say that was a really big thing. It hit all of us that were in that book club from her was, so the example of the woman with the really huge tragedies in her life, it is horrific. It is, but so is a family member that hurts you, or I'm thinking of someone else. They never had anything emotional in their life whatsoever. So they're super in their brain, and they're super in control, and they're super analytical. And so they can't get out of that. But their trauma is just as important and just as deeply ingrained and just as effective in their life. And so I just wanted to say to everyone that it doesn't matter whether you think your trauma, or I mean, we're using the word trauma, but your hurts are any less important than anyone else's.
Your body,
and they need just as much.
Yes, your
right?
body is what shows you that. You know, I mean, that person's migraine is no more important or less important than that person's, you know, arthritis. The point is, the body is screaming, saying, I have some pain here.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. If it's especially if it's to the point of manifesting as a physical disease or ailment, those cells don't care about the other person's trauma per se being more important. It's like, well, guess what? I hurt too, and you're definitely right, because again, we are all on that journey. And what's the difference between the person who's driving and they're in a tornado and the person who gets sunny skies? I don't know.
Right.
But it's how they respond.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I love it. Yay.
Well, I feel like we've covered what we were supposed to, I think.
Awesome.
I just feel like this is such an important topic that I wish we could do a Q&A or something on it sometime in the future, or you know, pull somebody else's perspective in on this, because I don't claim to, I haven't had any training in any of this, or you know, I'm not claiming to be some spiritual guru or something. This is just what I've come to find with the experience between my own life and then all of the people that I see and all the people that you see. It feels like this is something that needs to be so much more highlighted or talked about and validated, because to me, I feel like it's actually the key to unlock everything.
Yeah.
So here it is. We should probably talk about it a little more often.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love it.
Yes,
Awesome.
okay. Well, thank you all for being with us.